Hey guys, tonight we slip back into a world where the air smells of smoke, sweat, and something a little too close to boiled cabbage. The year is somewhere in the late 1300s. Your shoes are made of scrap leather, your belly's growling, and a chamber pot just missed your head by about a foot. Welcome to medieval street life. You, my brave listener, are about to become a town crier, but not yet. First, you have to survive the bottom rung of the ladder, a mucksweeper boy. And spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me, where are you listening from, and what time is it over there? Now ease back. Maybe crack a window for that cool breeze or wrap yourself in your softest blanket. Let the dark settle around you. Take a breath, and follow me back. Your job begins before sunrise. The streets aren't paved, not really. Just packed dirt, cobblestones where the rich folks live, and lots of soggy straw. You drag a crude broom, bristles lashed to a stick, over muck, dung, and whatever the horses, pigs, and drunks left behind last night. You're 9 years old, maybe 10. No one's really counting. All you know is your hands are red from the cold and your nose won't stop running. You're invisible, mostly. Shopkeepers toss you stale crusts or a bone with some gristle. If you're lucky, the tanner's apprentice lets you warm up by the vats of lye. If you're really lucky, the butcher doesn't yell when you dodge flying pig guts. That happened yesterday. You think you've still got a chunk of liver in your hood. And yet, you've got something not everyone notices, your lungs. Big ones, loud ones. You shout insults at the other boys with more force than most grown men. You sing while you sweep, hitting those high notes when your voice cracks in that half-puberty, half-starving way. It's not pretty, but it's heard. One morning, as you pass under the bell tower with your broom dragging behind you, you spot him, the bellmaster. He's leaning against a stone column, scratching his beard with a quill. He watches you yell at a goose blocking your path. Not politely, mind you. You scream at that bird with operatic drama. It honks in terror and flaps into a puddle. The bellmaster grins. And just like that, fate nudges you 1 inch upward. But don't get too excited, you're still trudging through refuse. Your chores expand. Now you help carry message boards. You scrub the posts where notices are nailed. You run errands between the guild halls. But the biggest change? You start hanging around the criers. They're gods to you, striding through the square in those ridiculous tunics, belting out decrees like their lungs are powered by fire. You mimic them in secret, practicing their pacing and pronunciation. You copy their accents, their dramatic pauses. You even try to growl like old Remy, the oldest crier, whose voice sounds like it's made of gravel and regret. Historians still argue whether criers were chosen more for their loyalty or their volume. Either way, they were trusted. They were the human newspapers of their time, part herald, part hype man, part walking town speaker. And soon, you're invited to follow one. Your first close-up? Not glamorous. You hold a dented bucket of charcoal ink while he stamps royal seals onto parchment. You get ink in your eye and sneeze for 5 minutes straight. He calls you Sootface from then on. Still, it's progress. Your job shifts again. You get to hold the bell. Let's talk about that bell. It's heavy. Real iron, cold enough to sting your palms every morning. You're not allowed to ring it yet. Just hold it, like a sacred relic. You watch how the crier lifts it. Not yanks, not shakes, but lifts and lets gravity swing it into motion. Clang, clang, clang. 3 times. Always 3. Then the cry begins. You don't cry yet, but you mouth along. Every word, like a devotional prayer. Most messages are mundane. Market days, new taxes, someone's goat escaped again. Occasionally it gets exciting, a thief sentenced to stocks or a royal visit. Once there's an execution. You try not to flinch as the crier delivers the sentence with grim flair, voice booming as the crowd gathers like moths to a bonfire. But you also hear whispers. That's one of the odd perks of being around criers. You overhear everything. Gossip travels fast, and criers, despite their dramatic airs, are also spectacular listeners. You hear about which merchants are cheating on weights, Which baker watered down his dough? Which night smells suspiciously of sheep? Fun tidbit. Some town criers were legally untouchable while on duty. They could insult a baron's beard mid-proclamation and not get hanged, as long as it was part of the message. This made them weirdly powerful and incredibly irritating at parties. You get better at reading the tone of each cry. You start memorizing whole passages. You practice after dark, whispering royal decrees into the night air while lying on your straw mat. You dream of the day your voice rings out above the crowd. But before that, you're assigned to clean the crier's boots. They are disgusting, caked with mud, dung, and something that smells suspiciously like boiled eel. You scrub them with rough cloth and vinegar. Your hands blister. The crier, a wiry man with a voice that could crack windows, watches you silently. Then one day, as you hand back his polished boots, he grunts, "Come tomorrow, early. Bring nothing." You don't sleep that night. Your heart kicks around like a trapped bird. You imagine yourself in livery. You imagine the bell in your hand, not just resting on your arm. You imagine shouting so loud the clouds part. The next morning, the bellmaster stands waiting. Beside him, a faded stage actor named Gaspard. You have just been enrolled in the loudest, strangest school in town. It begins with breathing. Boring, yes, but essential. Gaspard makes you lie on the cold stone floor and balance a sack of flour on your belly. You must raise and lower it slowly. It's harder than it sounds. You feel stupid, but after a week, you can make that sack rise like a pastry in a warm oven. Then comes vocal work. Tongue twisters, vowel shaping, reading aloud from faded scrolls full of impossible words. He corrects your pitch with pokes to the ribs and flicks to your ears. Week 3, you finally ring the bell. It nearly pulls your arm out of its socket. You stagger. The crier snorts, but he doesn't stop you. He hands you a short announcement, just 3 lines, and points to the square. You're terrified. You ring. Clang. It echoes. You shout. Your voice wobbles. Someone laughs. You try again. Louder. Clearer. The market stalls hush. A child claps. You finish with a bow. The crier doesn't smile, but he nods. You are no longer just a muck boy. You're on your way to becoming a voice the whole town can't ignore. You show up before dawn again. You don't wait to be told. Gaspard is already there, sipping something that smells suspiciously like fermented turnips. He's wearing 3 scarves and a single slipper. He grunts at you and hands over a rolled-up parchment. "You're shouting this one," he mutters. Your heart thuds. This time, it's a real notice. It carries a wax seal, red and sticky, pressed with the town's crest. You unroll it carefully. It's a simple message. A merchant's license has been revoked for selling spoiled fish. Seems minor. But then Gaspard leans in and says, "That merchant? He's the mayor's cousin." So this is a test. You practice the announcement while Gaspard paces in a circle like a slow, wheezing wolf. He stops you every few lines. "Project, don't bark," he snaps. "Pause there. Let them feel it." You want to argue, but he knows what he's doing. You realize every word has weight. A pause before revoked makes it sound like thunder. A slower pace makes the message hit harder. Gaspard is teaching you how to land your voice, not just throw it. By mid-morning, the bell is in your hand again. You step onto the wooden platform near the pillory. Your knees wobble, but your lungs are ready. You ring once, twice, 3 times. Then, "Oh yes, oh yes. Hear this by order of council." Heads turn. A woman drops a cabbage. You continue, your voice bouncing off stone and window pane. You hit every syllable like it owes you money. When you're done, the square is silent for a beat. Then murmurs ripple like wind through wheat. A few people nod. One spits. Gaspard claps once. Loud and sharp. "Still not great," he says. "But you've got the lungs." That night, your name spreads quietly. The muck boy has become the bell boy. You overhear it said near the bakery. One child points and mimics your cry. You pretend to hate it, but inside, you glow. The next few weeks, your duties shift again. Gaspard insists you train daily. It's exhausting, He makes you stand in cold rain and shout over it. He puts hot stones near your throat and makes you hum to feel the heat. One afternoon, he makes you drink vinegar and then scream into a bucket. You're fairly certain none of this is medical, but it works. Your voice deepens. It rounds out. You can now read from 50 paces away, and even old Remy nods when you pass. Then something big happens. The current junior crier, an awkward lad named Finian, twists his ankle chasing a pickpocket. He's out for 6 weeks. The bellmaster looks at you. You ready to earn your livery? You nod too fast. Let's pause and appreciate the livery. Something. The medieval town crier's outfit is part uniform, part peacock display. Yours is a tunic in blazing yellow with red trim, puffed shoulders, and enough brass buttons to blind a bishop. There are also, unfortunately, hose, bright, tight, and deeply unforgiving. You feel like a trussed goose. You're also given a hat with a giant feather. It wiggles when you move. You try not to smile. You're handed a badge. It's made of pewter, shaped like a shield, stamped with the royal crest. It means you now speak for the crown. You are not royalty, but you might be the loudest person in the kingdom who isn't. There's a catch, of course. With the badge comes responsibility. And a new title, Apprentice Crier, Second Bell. That means you don't get the big proclamations. You get the scraps. You're told to ring your bell and shout them in the less glamorous corners of town. Behind the tannery, near the fishmongers, downwind of the latrines. But here's the secret. That's where people listen most. Because those people, the workers, the poor, the tired ones, they don't get letters from the castle. They don't read. You're their news. You're their warning siren and their comedy hour rolled into one. One woman throws you a boiled turnip in thanks. A little girl claps every time you say, "Oh yes." A toothless cobbler yells, "Now that's a voice. You belong here." One morning, you're told to deliver your first multi-part notice. It includes a tax change, a marriage license, and a warning about river snakes. Yes, river snakes. Apparently, someone dumped an exotic pet into the moat and now it's angry. This one matters. So you take your time. You write your own notes, shortened lines that let you remember the rhythm. You practice between barrel stacks in the market, whispering the cadence. You check your reflection in a puddle. You hate your hat. You perform at noon. And when the bell rings, people actually gather. By order of the town council, take heed. All fish taxes increased by halfpence. Starting the morrow, let it be known. Edgar Thorne marries Lissa Cobb on St. Ermin's Day. And lastly, beware the moat. There's a snake, possibly magical, definitely angry. There's laughter, some groans. One man shouts, "Tell the snake to pay taxes." You bow. Now here's your quirky historical tidbit for the night. Some criers carried earplugs, small bits of cloth soaked in oil, to dull their own voice echo when shouting inside walled markets. Otherwise, they'd go deaf before 40. You try it once. The cloth smells like sheep. You skip it after that. The bellmaster watches from a distance. Afterward, he walks over. "You still look like a scrawny candle," he says. "But the voice? It's catching fire." From then on, you're given wider reach. You rotate through the town gates, shouting warnings about toll changes. You announce missing animals. You proclaim festival days and royal births. One notice even declares that dancing after dark without clergy permission is now punishable by 3 days in stocks and a soggy cabbage to the face. You deliver it with dramatic flair. People begin to know you. Not by name, you're just the loud one or bellboy or sometimes featherhead. But that's fine. You're rising. You still clean boots on occasion. You still sweep when Gaspard gets annoyed. But now people nod when you pass. You see the younger muck sweepers watching you. Sometimes, one mimics your oh yes. You stop, correct their posture, show them how to breathe from the belly. One kid faints. Your body begins to change. Your legs strengthen from pacing. Your throat becomes coated with a kind of invisible armor. You can now shout through rain, fog, and a hailstorm. Once. Your bell still has dents. You're tested, too. One night, a riot brews outside the alehouse. A stolen chicken. A bad bet. Someone throws a bottle. You're sent in with the bell. It's terrifying. You ring once. No one stops. You ring twice. Still chaos. Then you climb onto a barrel and scream the proclamation. By order of the guard, all assembly shall cease. Your voice cracks the noise like thunder. Heads turn. The crowd freezes. A bottle smashes harmlessly nearby. You finish the notice, then stare them down. It works. You didn't just read a message. You owned it. That night, as you hang your livery, the feather limp from rain, you realize you don't want to just speak news. You want to be the voice people wait to hear. The bell sleeps beside you. Tomorrow it'll ring again. Rain again. Of course, you wake up to that soft, steady tapping on the wooden shutters. The kind of drizzle that seeps into bone and soul. You groan. Wrap your thin wool cloak tighter around your shoulders and stuff your feet into damp shoes. Then you reach for it, your bell. It's not glamorous. The handle's worn smooth by years of sweaty palms, and one edge is chipped from that riot last week. But it's yours. It makes people listen. Today, you're on double cry duty. The senior crier is sick with something called summer lung, which sounds pleasant but apparently involves green phlegm and screaming nightmares. So you, bellboy, are stepping into bigger boots. You're given 3 scrolls, a lunch of dried peas, and a warning, don't mess it up. No pressure. You know the route by heart now. It spirals through the heart of town like a lazy snail. Main gate, Baker's Row, Merchant Square, West Wall, then back again. You time your bell rings to the rhythm of your steps. Ring, walk, 2, 3. Ring, walk, 2, 3. Like a marching band with one instrument and no backup. Today's notices are a mixed bag. First, a proclamation about grain prices. Simple enough. Second, a lost item. Lady Raleigh's prized ferret, whom she refers to as Sir Fluffwhistle. You almost laugh reading the name. Third, a death. That one stops you. You've done deaths before, plague warnings, drownings, even a mill accident that involved way too many details about loose sleeves. But this one's personal. A young girl, Agnes. She used to follow you around and mimic your cries. Red curls, loud laugh, always barefoot. Apparently, she caught something in the river. 3 days later, she was gone. You ring your bell slowly at the East Fountain. The crowd hushes. Let it be known. Agnes, the miller's daughter, has passed from this life into God's embrace. Let bells toll at midday. Let candles burn. You don't cry, but your voice wavers for the first time in weeks. Someone hands you a flower. You move on. That's the unspoken truth of being a crier. You're not just shouting headlines. You're holding the town's emotion in your lungs. Its joys, the scandals, its losses. You're the pulse, the messenger, the memory. You carry it all, and then walk home with mud on your ankles and ink on your sleeves. Later, Gaspard corners you behind the bread stalls. He smells like roasted leeks. You made them cry, he says. You brace for a scolding. He nods. Good. Then he sneezes into his sleeve and stomps off. A week later, you're summoned to the guild house. This is big. Only official criers go there. You think you're in trouble. You even try to polish your buttons, but one falls off and rolls under a pig cart. Inside, it's musty. Beeswax candles. Dust. A chair with suspicious stains. The bellmaster, 2 council scribes, and a cloth merchant with a very bad wig sit around a table. One scribe unrolls a parchment. Your probation ends today, he says. You will swear the oath. Your heart hammers. You drop to one knee. You repeat the words. To serve the town. To speak truth, however bitter. To ring only for justice, law, or warning. To hold no bribe. To keep no secret while bearing the badge. And just like that, you're no longer an apprentice. You're a town crier. Your badge is changed, still pewter, but this one has your name carved in tiny script. Your tunic is replaced with a heavier one, navy blue, trimmed in white. You now receive a monthly coin purse, a lodging stipend, and something called shoe allowance, which makes you laugh out loud. You're not sure if you'll use it for shoes or pie. Old Remy claps you on the back so hard your teeth rattle. Gaspard mutters something about finally, then hands you a bell of your own, not a borrowed one, Yours. You sleep with it beside you like a knight with his sword. Let's pause here for a fun fringe fact. In some parts of medieval France, criers were also responsible for lost and found items, not just announcing them, storing them, guarding them, and even returning them personally. If you ever wanted your missing left boot, you had to sweet-talk the crier. Some towns even accused criers of hiding things just to boost their side income. Historians still argue whether this was corruption or clever capitalism. Anyway, you settle into your new role quickly. People expect your voice now. Farmers glance at the sun and say, "Should be hearing him soon." Kids play crier in alleyways. Even the noble folk start listening, especially when you call them out for late taxes. You make sure to deliver those notices with extra cheer. Then, one day, everything changes. You're woken at dawn by the bellmaster himself. He looks grave. "A rider came in during the night," he says. "Royal messenger." You sit up so fast you knock over a cup of barley water. He hands you a sealed scroll, dark wax, lion crest, red ribbon. Royal decree. This is no fish price update. You are to announce a forthcoming visit from the king's envoy. Your hands sweat as you unroll the scroll. It's 3 feet long and full of titles. You read phrases like, "by divine right," and "with honor and dignity befitting his majesty's gaze." There are so many honorifics, it takes you 15 minutes just to figure out what you're actually supposed to say. Gaspard finds you an hour later, practicing in a back alley. "You're going to mess this up," he says almost fondly. You don't argue. This is a huge step. The entire town will gather. Nobles, bakers, beggars, even the monks. If you stutter or skip a line, well, no one's ever been executed for a botched announcement, but you really don't want to find out. You spend all day preparing. You re-ink your notes. You polish your bell. You steam your livery over a pot of thyme and water so it smells fresh. Then you stand at the main square platform just before sundown. The crowd is enormous. Your legs shake, but your lungs? Ready. Oh yes, by decree of His Royal Majesty. Hear this, you deliver the whole message. Flawless, firm, rising like a chant through the twilight. You name every title, every date, every location, even the weird bit about a ceremonial goat. And when you finish, there's silence, then applause, and then the bellmaster steps forward and bows. To you. That night, the baker gives you a full loaf. The blacksmith toasts you with warm ale. Even the cloth merchant, wig still awful, nods his approval. You lie in bed and stare at the ceiling. You're not just a boy with a loud voice anymore. You are the mouth of the city. You speak for its people. You carry its news, its warnings, its joy and grief in the curve of your throat. You are officially and undeniably the town crier, and tomorrow the king's envoy arrives. But that's a story for next time. You don't sleep, not properly. You close your eyes, sure, but all you see is velvet robes and disapproving royal eyebrows. Every squeak of the shutters sounds like a trumpet. Every creak of the rafters could be a marching boot. When dawn finally dribbles through the cracks in your ceiling, you're already dressed. You polish your badge 3 times. You shave with cold water and a shard of glass. You rehearse every phrase from yesterday's proclamation until your tongue goes numb. The king's envoy is coming today, and you, bellboy, are the one who must welcome him. No pressure. The square is scrubbed clean. Bunting flaps from every window. Even the rats seem cleaner. Nobles in too tight cloaks hover near the stage, while common folk perch on barrels, whispering. You catch snippets. Will he bring gifts? Will he smell like cinnamon? I heard he rides a horse made of marble. You try not to laugh. Mid-morning, the bellmaster gives you a nod. He doesn't say anything, but his eyes are sharper than usual. He's cleaned his hat. That's how you know it's serious. Then you hear it. Hoofbeats. Not many, just 6 or 7. But they're perfectly synchronized, like a heartbeat carved from wood and iron. A shimmer of gold and blue flashes down the main road. The crowd surges, but the guards hold them back. The envoy arrives. He's smaller than you expected. Slender, pale. His horse is enormous, black as ink and twice as moody. He wears a deep blue cloak lined with fur, and his boots gleam like mirrors. His face is unreadable. The only thing that moves is the feather in his cap, caught in the wind. You step forward. You ring the bell. Once, twice, 3 times. The crowd stills. Oh yes, by decree of the crown, let this town receive Sir Edric of Galwain, envoy to his majesty, bearer of word, and witness to the law. Your voice echoes like a spell. Sir Edric nods slightly. Just once. You did it. Then comes the hard part, hosting the envoy. That's not your job, technically, but you're assigned to escort and relay, which is noble speak for follow him around. Say things loudly, and don't mess up. For 3 days, you're his shadow. He doesn't talk much, but when he does, it's with a voice like poured honey over sharp glass. You will announce this, he says, handing you a scroll. At dusk, clearly, you bow. The message, a new tax, on ale. You almost weep. You're gonna get things thrown at you. And you do. Not hard things, just stale rolls, a spoon, and one extremely squishy tomato, but still. The townsfolk don't love taxes, especially on ale. But you deliver the notice, voice calm, words clipped. You even dodge the tomato mid-sentence. Later that evening, Sir Edric surprises you. You delivered that well, he says, removing his gloves. Even when they booed, you blink. Most criers flinch, he continues, or speed up. You didn't. You shrug, trying to play it cool. Didn't want to miss the part about enforcement fines. He almost smiles. Almost. The next day, you learn something new. Sir Edric summons you early. You'll shadow the legal tribunal, he says. You groan inwardly. That means standing in the stuffy town hall for hours while minor nobles argue about land and goats. But you obey. The chamber is packed. 3 disputes are read. 2 are boring. The third? A scandal. Lady Mirabelle, niece to a merchant baron, is accused of forging her own betrothal papers. Her reason? To avoid marrying a 50-year-old spice lord who smells like moldy cinnamon. The room explodes. You don't make the announcement immediately. You wait, watch, learn. Then, once the verdict is passed, guilty, but with emotional leniency, you step into the square and ring the bell. Hear ye, hear ye. By order of the Crown Court, let it be known that Lady Mirabelle of Westrow forged royal documents, and shall be fined 10 gold, but permitted to choose her own husband. The square roars with gossip. You deliver the final line with a wink. The crowd loves it. Sir Edric watches from a window, one eyebrow raised. Later, you ask him why you were brought to all this. He leans in. Because a good crier does not only shout. He knows when to shout, and how to make people care. You file that away. Then, that night, something else happens. You're summoned to the guild house. Again. It's late, stars out, torches flickering. You expect more scrolls, maybe a new robe. Instead, they hand you a letter, a real one, sealed, addressed to you. Inside, an invitation to the royal voice trials. You nearly drop it. See, once a year, across the kingdom, every town sends their best crier to a central gathering. They compete, yes, compete, in voice strength, clarity, stamina, even storytelling. Winners are offered positions in cathedral cities or the capital itself. It's the closest thing criers get to fame. And you've been chosen. Your name will be recorded. Your voice judged. Gaspard pats your shoulder. Don't embarrass us. Old Remy weeps and gives you his best boot polish. You leave in 2 days. Now, here's a historical tidbit. While most medieval town criers stayed local, some did, in fact, travel for special competitions. The best known of these were held during religious festivals or coronations, where criers competed to win noble favor. Prizes included gold, livestock, or even land. One legendary crier from Bruges reportedly won a whole vineyard for delivering a poem that made a duchess faint. Historians still argue whether she fainted from awe or wine fumes. Anyway, your preparation begins immediately. You run laps around the square to build stamina. You practice shouting against the wind. You stand in wells to test your echo. At one point, you make the mistake of yelling into a rain barrel and get a face full of water. You rehearse old proclamations, new ones, made-up ones. One is about haunted chickens. Another warns of a sun that refuses to set. The goal isn't content, it's control. Can you hold your pace? Time your breath? Own the crowd? By now, you've grown into your voice. It's richer, warmer, confident. But this competition will feature masters. You'll be the youngest there by far. The morning you leave, the town gathers. You're given a travel cloak, a silver-trimmed scroll case, and a slightly larger feather for your hat, which makes you look like a startled rooster. The baker hugs you. The cobbler tosses you a lucky copper. One boy hands you a carved wooden bell. You ride out with the rising sun, scroll case thumping against your side, heart thumping harder. As the town fades behind you, you whisper, "Oh yes," just to yourself, just to keep the sound warm, because soon you'll be shouting it for an entire kingdom. The road stretches out like a long, muddy ribbon. It winds through farmland and forest, past villages where chickens outnumber people and every child seems to be named Tom. Your horse, on loan from the guild, has 2 speeds, sleepy and spooked. You learn to sing to it softly, under your breath. Not to calm it, but to keep your own nerves in check. Because the royal voice trials, they're only held once a year, and only 20 criers are invited. You are the youngest by at least a decade, maybe more, and every bump in the road reminds you that your town crier badge is still new enough to smell like pewter polish. Still, the landscape lifts your spirits. Wildflowers dot the path. A hawk circles overhead. In the distance, church bells toll the hours. You pass through sleepy hamlets, each with their own crier. Some as old as trees, others with lungs that could probably break glass. One fellow delivers the weather report by juggling 3 apples while shouting about rain. You take notes. Finally, after 4 days of riding, you see it. Hightower, a city of slate roofs, high walls, and echoing domes, is perched on a hill like a crown. Inside those walls, cobbled squares, market tents, 7 churches, 3 taverns per block, and most importantly, a bell tower that reaches into the clouds. That's where the trials happen. You check in at the guild hall for criers and public sounders. Yes, that's its real name. The clerk, a thin man with 1 eye and no humor, hands you a ribbon with your number, 17. Then he points to the board. The schedule reads, Day 1, voice power. Day 2, clarity and pace. Day 3, memory recall. Day 4, dramatic interpretation. Day 5, the gauntlet, finals. You gulp. They weren't kidding. Day 1 arrives fast. The courtyard fills with criers from every corner of the kingdom. One wears fox pelts. Another has a voice so deep it makes your chest vibrate. They stretch. They hum. They bellow into barrels of water. One particularly enormous man named Big Matty breaks a wooden bench just by sitting. Then the bell rings. A judge in purple robes steps forward. He's wearing 4 pairs of earplugs. Not a joke. You'll each shout this phrase, he says, holding up a parchment. By crown and sky, let justice cry. Easy enough. But here's the twist. You must shout it across the entire city square and still be understood on the far side. No pressure. Big Matty goes first. He roars so loud a dog howls. Others follow, some shrill, some theatrical. One poor soul hiccups halfway through. Then it's your turn. You step up. Feel the stone under your feet, the wind at your back, and you breathe from the belly, not the throat, and you shout, by crown and sky, let justice cry. It booms, echoes. A woman with laundry 3 buildings away nods in approval. You hear it, the bounce, the clean arc, no crack, no fade. The judge makes a mark. You don't peek. That night, the inn is packed with criers. They swap stories, trade tips, and argue over breath control. You learn that one finalist from last year used to sing sea shanties to train their pitch. Another practiced by reading market prices to barn animals. Then, a veteran crier tells you this. You can teach volume, sure, but to hold a crowd? That's magic. Day 2 is all about clarity and pace. You're given 3 scrolls, complicated, twisty, tongue-breaking. Stuff like 2 turnips for the tax tally, 10 trimmed tenons from the toy maker, and a tangle of tarnished trowels. It's like verbal gymnastics. You're judged not just on accuracy, but rhythm. Can you speak fast without blurring? Can you pause without dragging? Can you handle words like exsanguination without accidentally summoning a demon? You hold your own. One judge even taps his quill twice. That's apparently a compliment. By now, you're catching names. There's Mistress Ellen from White Post, tall, gray-eyed, sharp as a blade. She speaks with the musical lilt of a church bell and always ends her cries with a wink. There's Daff from the South Isles, a wiry man who recites laws like bedtime stories and casually flips his bell like a juggler. And then there's Tomwell, from the capital. Golden voice, perfect hair, smirks like he's already won. He never trips, never fumbles, never sweats. You kind of hate him. Day 3 is memory recall. No scrolls. You're read a 5-line proclamation once, then sent into a locked room for 10 minutes. When you return, you must deliver it word for word. You panic. You've never been great at memory work. You're more of a wing-it-with-charm kind of speaker. Still, you listen carefully. The proclamation is about market weights, fencing permits, and a lost donkey. Somehow, you remember it. Mostly. You forget the exact weight allowed for cured mutton but recover by adding a dramatic pause. The judge's eyebrow twitches. You're not sure if that's good or bad. Day 4. Dramatic interpretation. Now, this is where you shine. You're handed a story. Just the bones of it, no flair. A boy falls into a river. His sister saves him. Their goat runs away. Simple. You must turn it into theater. And you do. You pace. You gasp. You whisper. You ring your bell at the turning point. You even make the goat dramatic. The crowd laughs, gasps, leans in. When you finish, you hear clapping. From other criers. Even Tomwell. Kind of. He coughs and says, "Not bad," which, from him, is like a standing ovation. Now for a quirky side note. In 15th century England, certain towns hired criers exclusively for festivals. These jubilant bellmen were trained not in law or policy, but in drama. They told tales, sang songs, even performed dances between cries. Some wore jester bells and masks. Historians still argue whether they were respected town figures or just glorified party planners. Anyway, day 5 arrives. The gauntlet. This is the final round. Only 5 criers remain. You, Mistress Ellen, Tomwell, Daff, and Big Matty, who accidentally knocked over a statue yesterday but still scored well. The test? You must 1. Read an urgent town decree. 2. Sing the warning lines in rhythm. 3. Improvise the closing based on local gossip you heard during the week. All in front of royal observers. You steady your hands. You step forward. You speak. You sing. You improvise. You end with, "So light your torches, bolt your doors, and tell Lady Weathers to keep her geese on a leash this time." Laughter ripples through the crowd. You hear one judge whisper. He listens. That's rare. The scores are tallied. Your heart pounds like a blacksmith's hammer. Tomwell wins first place. Naturally. Mistress Ellen takes second. Then you. Third place. Not bad. But here's the twist. The royal scribe approaches you later, alone. Says he watched your delivery all week. Says your voice has pull. Says the cathedral city of Stonetide needs a new herald's deputy. And you're invited to fill the post. Not just a town crier. A cathedral crier. With robes. And audiences that span thousands. You ask for time to think. And you do think. All night. Because home is still your small town. Your crooked bed. Your favorite bakery. The girl who gave you a wooden bell. But this is the path. This is where it begins. In the morning, you accept. You send a message home. Tell Gaspard I'll visit. But I've got louder bells to ring now. And as you ride toward your new city, you whisper, "Oh yes." But this time, you shout it, just to hear it bounce off the trees. Because now you know, your voice is more than loud. It's your gift, your story, your future. The road to Stonetide feels different than your journey to Hightower. Not just longer, but heavier, older, stranger. You pass into fog-thick valleys where the trees lean like they're whispering secrets. Every village you pass seems one step further back in time. Men till the soil with wooden plows. Women gather herbs with silver sickles. A boy in one hamlet says he's never seen a horse before. And then, through the mist, stone-tied. It doesn't rise from the ground. It looms. A cathedral city carved from cliffs, hugging the sea like a stubborn old cat. The buildings are dark stone, salt-worn and proud. Every window has an arch. Every alley echoes. And above it all, towering like a second moon, the great cathedral of Saint Belera, crowned with 5 brass bells the size of oxen. Your new home. The royal scribe meets you at the city gates. His beard is forked, his ink stains permanent, and his vocabulary eccentric. "You'll do," he says, sniffing. "Follow me." Your role as herald's deputy is more than just yelling. You're part crier, part clerk, part ceremonial furniture. On feast days, you recite saintly verses on the cathedral steps. On court days, you announce verdicts with a special judicial bell that only rings on Wednesdays. And 3 times a week, you walk the outer loop, the winding path through all 7 boroughs, shouting news, laws, and, occasionally, warnings about rogue pigs. Your outfit? A dark blue robe with gold trim, a feathered cap, and yes, 2 bells. One standard, one brass-plated with the city's crest. A lion licking a book. Don't ask. No one agrees what it means. You even get a helper, a lad named Hob, whose job is to carry your extra scrolls and look alarmed on your behalf. The first few days are pure chaos. You mispronounce the name of a minor saint and get pelted with walnuts. You trip over a fish barrel while shouting about sewer repairs. A goose steals your scroll mid-cry and Hob chases it into a fountain. But slowly, the city warms to you. Children follow you for fun. Vendors wave. One baker starts giving you free buns every Tuesday, just for making the news sound less boring. You learn to ride the rhythm of the city, to pause for market bells, to shout against the sea wind. You even start collecting cheers. Short rhymes locals shout back at you when they like your delivery. Your favorite? The Crier's bold. The news is hot. He tells us things we soon forgot. The strangely flattering. Now, about those cathedral duties. Every dawn, the high bell rings out across the bay. It's said that if it doesn't ring, the sea won't rise. You're not in charge of that, thankfully, but you do open every Sunday sermon with a reading from the Chronicle of the People, a long scroll of local happenings and historical tidbits. It's like a medieval newsletter. You get creative, add pauses, emphasize names. Once, you throw in a little rhyme. 2 fish were caught by candlelight. Bless the hands that made the bite. The bishop almost smiles. Almost. But behind the scenes, something's changing. You start noticing the politics. Criers aren't just messengers. They're tools, weapons even. One morning, you're handed a scroll from the mayor's steward. It says, "The council will host a hearing on the bakers' union proposal. Attendance encouraged." Harmless, right? But when you cry it out, you're stopped by a hooded friar. He hisses, "Why no mention of the cathedral's stance?" Later, the bishop pulls you aside. Says next time you'd better read from his scroll. You feel the tug. 2 sides, both powerful, both using your voice. So you start writing your own neutral phrasing. Phrases like "sources differ" and "by council order," but not cathedral blessing. Hob calls it news fencing. You're a tightrope walker now. And then comes the procession of ashes. It's an ancient city rite, held every decade to remember a long-lost fire that nearly destroyed the city. You must lead it. Torch in one hand, bell in the other, you march at the front of 100 robed monks. Behind them, the mayor, the bishop, half the city, and a goat, symbolic, apparently. Your voice booms through the narrow streets. We march for memory, for flames survived, for stone reborn. You chant it 50 times. By the end, your throat is raw, your feet are numb, and the goat has tried to eat your robe. But you've never felt more alive. Historians still argue whether the procession of ashes dates back to the real fire in 1239. or if it was invented during a bread riot in 1371. One theory suggests it was originally a parade for bakers, not mourners, and only got somber when a particularly flammable oven incident added gravitas. Either way, it's yours now. You lead it, you shape it, and the city notices. A tailor makes you a new cape, red velvet with bell clasps. Children leave notes on your doorstep. You're loud, but in a good way. A sculptor even carves your face with slightly exaggerated cheekbones into the side of the south fountain. You're more than a crier now. You're a voice, a symbol, but you don't forget where you came from. Once a month, you send a scroll back home. Gaspard reads them aloud in the square. You hear rumors that the blacksmith's daughter blushes every time your name is mentioned. Sometimes you wish you could ride back, just for a bun and a familiar face. But Stonetide needs you, and you've still got lessons to learn, like bell maintenance. Yes, bells require cleaning, polishing, even tuning. You're assigned a mentor, Mistress Caldra, the city's oldest bell mistress. She once shouted down a riot using a single triple-rung chime. She teaches you how to hear a bell's true voice. You ring too hard, she scolds. It's not a dinner gong, it's a partner. You strike it gently, like waking a dragon that likes you. You practice, listen, adjust. Soon, your cries are accompanied by perfectly timed, resonant chimes. And on rainy days, when fewer people listen, you learn to project with softness, not strain. Whispering news like secrets carried by the wind. Here's a weird tidbit. In some parts of medieval Italy, criers were forbidden to shout during rainstorms. The belief, water dampened truth, and no message should be delivered until the sky was clear. Whether superstition or strategy, no one knows, but it made criers carry little parasols, which sounds amazing. As the months pass, you gain weight from free pastries and lose it walking miles a day. You develop a near-religious devotion to hot lemon water. And you get older, not just in years, in patience, in timing. You no longer rush your delivery. You savor it. You build moments. You learn that a perfectly timed pause can make a whole street lean in. That's real power. And then, one quiet dawn, you're called to the mayor's office. It's urgent. He hands you a scroll. The seal is broken, the parchment stained. It reads, "Royal envoys arriving. Tomorrow, prepare a welcome cry." And at the bottom, a symbol you recognize, the Royal Guild of Criers. They're coming to evaluate you. Again, no longer a student, now a candidate. For what? They won't say, but you have a feeling. So you stand, roll your shoulders, call for Hob, and begin to write the most powerful cry you've ever crafted. No jokes, no filler, just your voice. True, clean, ready. You sleep maybe 3 hours. Not because you're unprepared, but because your mind just won't shut off. Every bell toll in the night feels like a countdown. Every creak in the timbers sounds like a metaphor. And Hob, he snores like a walrus choking on a fife. But finally, morning, gray, misty, perfect for drama. You rise, dress in your cleanest robe, the red velvet with the bell clasps, and check your voice with a few whispered warm-ups. Brown bread, bold bell, barley born and baked. The lion licks the lesson laid before the lads. Your breath fogs the window. Down in the square, people are already gathering. Not just common folk, but officials, guards, cloaked figures that smell faintly of ink and authority. Then you see them, the royal envoys, 5 of them, all wearing robes of dark green with gold thread. No bells, no scrolls, just long faces and clipboards. They nod. That's your cue. You step forward, bell raised, voice clear. Citizens of Stonetide, lend me your ears and clear your thoughts, for what I bring is news from kings. Silence falls like a velvet curtain. You've got them, so you keep going. Today, by royal decree, the Guild of Criers walks among us, a sharp, quills ready. They listen not for volume, but for truth, not for show, but for soul. It's not a cry, it's a pledge. You end with a bell tap that echoes across the bay. The envoys don't clap, but they nod, which is much scarier. Later, they speak to you, privately, One's ancient, long nose, parchment breath. Another is younger than you, fidgeting with his belt clasp. The rest? Unreadable. Tell us, the eldest says. What is a town crier? You pause, then answer. A voice, presence, a mirror, a shield, a storyteller who trades in memory, not noise. The younger one looks impressed. The oldest nods once, scribbles something, and leaves. That's it. No ceremony, no test, just judgment. Historians still argue whether the Royal Guild ever had a formal testing process. Some say they simply watched and whispered. Others claim you had to recite 87 laws backwards while balancing on a barrel. One fringe scholar believes guild members used to lick the scrolls to test the ink quality, which, frankly, explains a lot. Regardless, something shifts after their visit. You're called to the mayor's office the next day. He clears his throat dramatically and presents you with a scroll tied in blue silk. You've been named, he says. Named what? The city voice. It's official. No longer herald's deputy. No longer that loud fellow with the cap. Now, city voice of Stonetide. You get your own seal. Your own office. Tiny, but with a window. And best of all, you're finally allowed to write your own cries without waiting for committee edits. You waste no time. You debut a whole new style, shorter, sharper, more poetic. You experiment with rhyme. 2 ships arrived, 1 left again. 1 carried salt, 1 carried men. You try alliteration. Baker's bids brought before Burrow bench. You even sneak in a subtle joke now and then. Like, lost. 1 boot, left-footed. Found 1 boot, right-footed. Possible match. Possible marriage. The crowd loves it. 1 older woman starts timing her laundry with your announcements. Saying it makes the linens crisper. You begin training junior criers, kids who want to learn. You call them your hatchlings. They giggle every time you say, diaphragm. And then, quite suddenly, you get summoned back to Hightower. It's been years. You travel with Hob, now taller, somehow fuzzier. A fresh bell, and a new scroll case engraved with your title. Hightower hasn't changed much. Still proud, still bustling. The streets feel narrower, the air brighter. But you've changed. You walk with rhythm now. Stand straighter. Your voice doesn't boom, it lands. You cry at the main square, where old Gaspard watches from the smithy steps, weeping quietly behind a mug of cider. The townsfolk cheer your name. The same folks who once winced at your mispronunciations now ask for autographs. You visit the apprentice hall. The same stone benches. The same cracked bell in the corner. You leave behind a scroll labeled, Tips for Future Criers, sealed with blue wax. Tip number 3 reads, if the geese start hissing, you're doing something right. You return to Stonetide with a full heart. And that's when you find it, a letter, waiting on your desk. No seal, just your name. Inside, a message from the Royal Guild. You've been selected for the final step. No instructions, just a meeting place. The old ruins at Clifftop Abbey. Midnight, full moon, naturally. So you go. The abbey is silent, swallowed by ivy and fog. The only sound is your own breath and the whisper of waves far below. Then, from the shadows, they step out. The 5, the same envoys, still unsmiling, still in green. They hand you a scroll, blank, then a bell, small, simple, silver, and finally they ask, give us the cry no one else can write. You take the scroll, take a breath, and begin, not with a flourish, not with a rhyme, but with honesty. I was once a boy with crooked teeth and a louder voice than sense. I stood on crates. I fell off crates. I learned to ring before I knew what ringing meant. I shouted wrong names, wrong dates, the wrong town once. I cried for bread, for plague, for goats on fire. I cried for peace, for memory, for the joy of sound itself. You don't know how long you speak, but when you stop, the wind does too. The eldest envoy leans forward, eyes gleaming. You may ring the silver bell. You do, and the sound is like a sunbeam poured into metal. It rings not once, but forever, or so it feels. Then they nod, one by one, and vanish. You walk home in silence, silver bell in hand. Not louder, not prouder, just true. The next day, you return to your usual route. No fanfare, no announcement, just a gentle cry at dawn. New bread at market, fair skies today, poets gone missing, but left behind rhyme. The people smile, the children follow, and somewhere, in a window high above the cathedral, a cloaked figure watches and nods. You've done it, but the journey's not quite over. There's still one more voice to raise, one more city to visit, one final task before you can rest your bells and let the wind carry the echoes of all you've become. You get the summons one misty afternoon, tucked into your pocket by hands you never see. The scroll is perfumed with cedar and wax. It bears no name, just a single instruction. Travel east, follow the Bell Road, stop at no house with a red door, speak only when spoken to. The guild awaits. You sigh. Another mysterious invitation to walk halfway across the continent on what is either a ritual, a trap, or a highly exclusive picnic. You pack light, bell, scroll case, cloak, and hob. You tell him it's optional. He says, "You'd trip over a frog without me." Fair point. And so the two of you set out. The Bell Road isn't on any official map, but old criers speak of it in hushed tones. A winding path that connects the cities where guild bells first rang. It's said that if you walk it in silence, your footfalls fall in perfect rhythm, like a slow heartbeat of history itself. You walk for days, past marshes that hiss at night, through forests where owls stare too long, over bridges with no handrails and names like Whisper Cross and Sister's Gasp. At one point, you spot a house with a red door. You don't stop. Eventually, you reach a village that has no name, just bells, everywhere, on doors, in trees, hung from strings across rooftops, not ringing, not moving, just waiting. This is where you meet the bellmaster. She appears from a hut so small you swear it wasn't there seconds ago. She's old but not frail. Her spine curves like a question mark. Her eyes glint like candlelight through glass. Her voice, soft, final. You've been chosen. You resist the urge to say, yeah, that's sort of been the theme lately. Instead, you bow. She gives you a task. Not to cry, not to shout, but to listen. For 3 days, you sit in the center of the village while the wind moves through the hanging bells. Each chime is different. Some sharp, some deep. One sounds exactly like Hob when he's eating turnips too fast. You start to notice patterns. Morning bells ring in minor chords. Evening bells in rising scales. When a raven lands near, the bells closest to it go utterly still. The bellmaster nods approvingly. "Now you understand," she says. "You do not." So she explains. Each bell in this village represents a voice, of a past crier, a moment, a memory. When the wind hits just right, they tell a story. But only if you know how to listen. You try. By day 3, you can hear the difference between joy and grief in the bells. By day 4, you can tell when a bell was cast in love or in fear. By day 5, you start hearing your own voice, echoing back at you from bells you didn't touch. And on the 6th night, the bellmaster hands you a scroll. Blank again. "Now," she says, "cry what the bells have told you." You stand in the middle of the village. Hob stands at the edge, watching. The bells do not ring. You speak. "Wind, take this message, wrapped in echo and brass, that time forgets nothing. That voice is memory, that we are all stories waiting to ring." The bells tremble, then chime, one by one, in harmony. Even the trees seem to sway in time. The bellmaster smiles. "You are ready." Ready for what? You're not sure, but you feel it too, like a note long held finally allowed to fade. The next morning, she's gone. So is the hut. The village remains, but the bells are still. You leave quietly and head east, farther still. Weeks pass. Villages blur. You start collecting echoes, not just sound, phrases. You write them down in your own private scroll book. Your favorite so far? The best cries sound like secrets everyone already knows. Another, if they don't laugh once, you're a bell, not a voice. One day, you stumble upon a coastal town called Driftmere. No criers, no bells, only whispers. You ask why. The mayor, a wide-eyed woman with a nervous cough, says, "Last crier went mad," said the sea was talking back. "We banned it after that." Intriguing, so you stay the night. And as waves crash against the shore, you stand on the empty crier's post and whisper a single line. The sea remembers. You should too. In the morning, a small bell is hung from the town gate. No one claims to have done it, but the mayor nods at you like you've brought something back. The power of presence. It's not about the shouting. It never was. Your journey continues. You teach a girl in a mountain village how to project without strain. You trade tongue twisters with a traveling minstrel. You cry news of a sheep uprising in a valley where sheep definitely shouldn't be organizing. Quirky fact, in parts of medieval France, animals were sometimes put on trial for crimes. Pigs, goats, even insects. One crier famously had to read a full list of charges against a rooster accused of laying an egg. Historians still argue whether the case was real or symbolic, or if the rooster just had excellent lawyers. And finally, after 100 towns, 100 cries, and 1,000 blisters, you return to Stonetide. The people cheer, bells ring. The baker gives you 3 buns instead of 1. Even the bishop nods from his balcony. But the biggest surprise? Your old office is now a school. The apprentice program you started is thriving. For criers, all under 20, take turns practicing cries in the square while villagers rank their flair with wooden paddles. Hob runs the schedule. He's wearing spectacles now. Says they make him look important and slightly feared. You smile and step aside, for now, because you know something now. Being a town crier isn't about being heard. It's about hearing first. It's not the volume, it's the value. And as the sun sets over the bay, you stand at the harbor edge, silver bell in hand, and whisper one last test to the wind. "If you remember me, let the waves reply." A soft chime answers from behind. You turn. One of your apprentices stands there, holding a bell just like yours. They smile. "I thought you might need this," they say. You don't, but you accept it anyway, because passing on the bell, that's the final step, and yours is nearly complete. The next weeks are slower, not in a boring way, just in that warm, late summer pace where nothing feels urgent, even when it is. You settle back into Stonetide like a cloak returning to shoulders. There's a comfort in it now. The morning market buzz, the smell of rye loaves cooling on racks, the sharp clang of metal from the blacksmith who insists he doesn't like you, then gives you free nails just in case. Your apprentices, well, they're getting better. Jules, the youngest, still has a pitch that could peel bark off trees, but he's learning breath control. Mira, who used to mumble like a squirrel chewing soap, now has the steadiest cadence in town. Even grumbly Edwin has taken to rehearsing in the mirror, though he insists it's just to check his teeth. You hold weekly gatherings under the bell tower. No scrolls, no rules, just stories. One apprentice calls them Echo Nights. You like that. You ring a small bell at the start, and then each apprentice takes a turn, announcing imaginary events, spinning wild tales, mimicking your old cries with exaggerated flair. The townspeople show up, wrapped in cloaks and leaning on elbows, sipping cider and chuckling softly. It's not news. It's memory. Alive. One night, a child asks, "Why do you cry, sir?" You pause and answer honestly, so you don't forget the things that matter, or the people who said them first. A simple truth, but it lands. Even Hob hums his agreement, sipping from his mug of something suspiciously herbal. One morning, you wake to a new scroll, not sealed, just tucked neatly into your window shutter. You open it expecting another mission. Instead, a request from a small inland village named Kether's Hollow. No criers there, never had one, but the village elder writes, in shaky hand, "Our stories are fading. Come teach us how to ring them back." You pack before breakfast. Hob raises an eyebrow. Another bell trip? You nod. Short one. He grabs his coat, and the two of you are off again. Kether's Hollow is quiet. Too quiet. No bells. No carts. No children screaming. Even the crows look slightly bored. You ask around. Turns out the village never had a town crier. Not because they didn't want one, but because no one ever taught them what it meant to have one. So you begin simply. You gather the villagers by the well and say, "We're going to start with the sound of a name." You go around. Each person says their name. You repeat it, louder, clearer, until everyone hears themselves in the air and believes it belongs there. You teach them how to project, how to pause for impact, how to ring a bell without flinching, and eventually how to write a cry, one line for truth, one for feeling, one for memory. The first cry Kether's Hollow ever hears? "The apples are ripe, the roof needs patching, and my daughter is taller than I thought." They weep. You stay for 2 weeks. By the time you leave, a small bell hangs from the village gate. Crude, rusty, but full of echo. Another voice added to the world. Another memory caught in brass. Back in Stonetide, something's changed. You start seeing more people carrying bells. Not criers, just ordinary folk. They hang them in gardens, attach them to walking sticks. One man strings a row of tiny bells to his fishing net and swears they bring him better luck. A woman asks if she can cry her own wedding. You help her write the announcement. Joined hands today with a man who loves pickled eggs and laughs in his sleep. You cry it for her at sunset. It becomes a local favorite. You begin to wonder, what if the guild never wanted a crier? What if they wanted a chorus? The thought lingers, and one evening, after crying news of a particularly aggressive turnip harvest, you hear a voice behind you. You've changed the sound of the town. It's Gaspard, old, slower, but sharp-eyed. He hands you something. A worn scroll, edges curled from time. Your first cry, the one you scribbled years ago. You read it again, smiling at the errors. You ask him why he kept it. He shrugs. Saw something in it. You nod. You see it now too. And so you write something new. A scroll titled The 12 Steps. Not a guide. Not really. More like a memory trail. Starts. Step 1. Ring a bell before you know how. Step 2. Shout too loud. Step 3. Listen. Step 4. Be wrong. Step 5. Ring again. You leave it in the apprentice hall, just in case someone needs it later. And just when you think the journey might be ending, a messenger arrives, out of breath, grinning. A new town's been founded upriver. No name yet, no mayor, no bell, but they want you, not to cry, but to train the one who will. You smile, and pack again. Your scroll case is heavier now, stuffed with years of voices. Your bell? Still silver, still yours. You set off down the same road. Not for the first time, and certainly not the last, because some cries are meant to echo through more than just time. They're meant to echo through people, and through you forever. The next weeks are slower, not in a boring way, just in that warm, late summer pace where nothing feels urgent, even when it is. You settle back into Stonetide like a cloak returning to shoulders. There's a comfort in it now. The morning market buzz, the smell of rye loaves cooling on racks, the sharp clang of metal from the blacksmith who insists he doesn't like you, then gives you free nails just in case. Your apprentices, well, they're getting better. Jules, the youngest, still has a pitch that could peel bark off trees, but he's learning breath control. Mira, who used to mumble like a squirrel chewing soap, now has the steadiest cadence in town. Even grumbly Edwin has taken to rehearsing in the mirror, though he insists it's just to check his teeth. You hold weekly gatherings under the bell tower. No scrolls, no rules, just stories. One apprentice calls them Echo Nights. You like that. You ring a small bell at the start, and then each apprentice takes a turn, announcing imaginary events, spinning wild tales, mimicking your old cries with exaggerated flair. The townspeople show up, wrapped in cloaks and leaning on elbows, sipping cider and chuckling softly. It's not news. It's memory. Alive. One night, a child asks, "Why do you cry, sir?" You pause and answer honestly, so you don't forget the things that matter, or the people who said them first. A simple truth, but it lands. Even Hob hums his agreement, sipping from his mug of something suspiciously herbal. One morning, you wake to a new scroll, not sealed, just tucked neatly into your window shutter. You open it expecting another mission. Instead, a request from a small inland village named Kether's Hollow. No criers there, never had one, but the village elder writes, in shaky hand, "Our stories are fading. Come teach us how to ring them back." You pack before breakfast. Hob raises an eyebrow. "Another bell trip?" You nod. "Short one." He grabs his coat, and the two of you are off again. Kether's Hollow is quiet. Too quiet. No bells, no carts, no children screaming. Even the crows look slightly bored. You ask around. Turns out the village never had a town crier. Not because they didn't want one, but because no one ever taught them what it meant to have one. So you begin simply. You gather the villagers by the well and say, "We're going to start with the sound of a name." You go around. Each person says their name. You repeat it, louder, clearer, until everyone hears themselves in the air and believes it belongs there. You teach them how to project, how to pause for impact, how to ring a bell without flinching, and eventually how to write a cry, one line for truth, one for feeling, one for memory. The first cry Kether's Hollow ever hears? "The apples are ripe, the roof needs patching, and my daughter is taller than I thought." They weep. You stay for 2 weeks. By the time you leave, a small bell hangs from the village gate. Crude, rusty, but full of echo. Another voice added to the world. Another memory caught in brass. Back in Stonetide, something's changed. You start seeing more people carrying bells. Not criers, just ordinary folk. They hang them in gardens, attach them to walking sticks. One man strings a row of tiny bells to his fishing net and swears they bring him better luck. A woman asks if she can cry her own wedding. You help her write the announcement. Joined hands today with a man who loves pickled eggs and laughs in his sleep. You cry it for her at sunset. It becomes a local favorite. You begin to wonder, what if the guild never wanted a crier? What if they wanted a chorus? The thought lingers, and one evening, after crying news of a particularly aggressive turnip harvest, you hear a voice behind you. You've changed the sound of the town. It's Gaspard, old, slower, but sharp-eyed. He hands you something. A worn scroll, edges curled from time. Your first cry, the one you scribbled years ago. You read it again, smiling at the errors. You ask him why he kept it. He shrugs. Saw something in it. You nod. You see it now too. And so you write something new. A scroll titled The 12 Steps. Not a guide. Not really. More like a memory trail. Starts. Step 1. Ring a bell before you know how. Step 2. Shout too loud. Step 3. Listen. Step 4. Be wrong. Step 5. Ring again. You leave it in the apprentice hall, just in case someone needs it later. And just when you think the journey might be ending, a messenger arrives, out of breath, grinning. A new town's been founded upriver. No name yet, no mayor, no bell, but they want you, not to cry, but to train the one who will. You smile, and pack again. Your scroll case is heavier now, stuffed with years of voices. Your bell? Still silver, still yours. You set off down the same road, not for the first time, and certainly not the last, because some cries are meant to echo through more than just time. They're meant to echo through people, and through you forever. Now ease back again. Feel the weight of the bell in your hand dissolve into the soft folds of night. Breathe in the cool air, carrying distant echoes of laughter and whispered stories. Let your thoughts drift gently, like leaves floating on a slow river. You have traveled far, seen many towns, met voices old and new, but most of all, you have learned what it means to be heard and to listen. No matter where you are or when you are listening to this story, remember, voices connect us. They build bridges from past to present, from heart to heart. And every whisper, every shout, every bell chime is part of a larger song, a song that carries us home. So settle in. Maybe imagine a bell softly ringing in the distance. Let it lull you, like a gentle reminder that stories never truly end. They simply wait, waiting for the next voice brave enough to cry them out loud. Good night.